Good morning and welcome to an all new bonus episode of Mystery, Murder, and Magic. I'm your host, Andrea. Hope you're having a good weekend and trying to keep cool. The temperatures here are awful, okay? Our feels like temperatures have been like in the triple digits for almost a week now. Yeah. So, I'm not sure about y'all, but ow. Felt like something crawling on my leg. But anyway, I'm not sure about y'all, but I'm ready for fall. I'm just over this heat wave that we're having right now. But anyway, today's bonus episode is about a Texas woman who stabbed her husband nearly 200 times. And this happened 18 years ago. Her name is Susan Wright. So stick with us and give it a listen.
Mystery, murder, heroes,
Well, not Alex today. He's still asleep. He'll be with us on Monday. So, yeah. But anyway, is Susan Wright a name that you're familiar with? I had seen a couple of things on ID about her. None of them ever really went into a whole lot of detail. So I thought, hey, let's dig into her, see who she is, okay? Well, anyway, she was born in Houston, Texas on April 24th, 1976. When she turned 17 years old, she started working as a topless dancer in a club, but she only worked there for like 2 months. In 1997, while she was working as a waitress at a restaurant, she met the man that she would marry. And in 1998, she and Jeff Wright tied the knot, and at the time of her wedding, she was actually 8.5 months pregnant with their first child. It was a little boy. Now, it was during those first few years of marriage that Susan says Jeff began to abuse her, and she claims that he was really addicted to cocaine, and that was what was causing their problems. Now, if you were to look at their family photos, you would see just a normal American family. She's standing there smiling. She looks like the typical all-American mom, soccer mom. He looks like the devoted dad, but because there's nothing in those photos that hints that there's anything wrong in their marriage or about to go wrong. Now, we don't know for a fact that Jeff ever abused Susan. It's basically her word against his, and he's not here to, to fight what she said. But, we can only go on what she told authorities. And I had to admit that if you were listening on Wednesday, we talked about O'Mama Nelson that had killed her husband. And some of this sounds a lot like her story. Not quite as grotesque as that story, though. But what we do know about Susan's case is that for whatever reason, whether it was self-defense, as she said, or she just completely snapped, she killed her husband. According to the prosecution, on January 13th, 2003, Susan tied Jeff to their bed in their home and stabbed him 193 times, using 2 different knives. After she killed him, she dragged him to their backyard and she buried him. Now, Jeff didn't just happen to be in the bed, and then she walked in and sees the opportunity. No. After she got the kids tucked into bed that night, she seduced Jeff to their bedroom by standing in the doorway of the room that he was watching TV in, and all she was wearing was a red satin robe. Well, once they were in their bedroom, she suggested that Jeff lay down on the bed, and once he was laying down, she began tying his arms and legs to the headboard and footboard of the bed using neckties and a bathrobe. And Jeff probably thought, Susan's about to be kinky with me, and he was probably pretty excited. Well, after she tied him up, she took one of the candles in the bedroom that she had lit, and she dripped hot wax on Jeff's inner thigh. And, of course that was painful, so he starts trying to fight her. Well, as he's trying to fight her, she starts slashing at his penis. All in total, she stabbed him 193 times. And after she did that, she took a shower to clean herself up. Before she started to clean the mess up in their bedroom, she called her in-laws and gave them a bogus story. She told them that Jeff had came home from a boxing lesson in a rage and that he had taken it out on her and their young son. Well, his parents couldn't believe what they were hearing and asked to speak to Jeff. Well, Susan told him that he had left their home and she was pretty sure he was never coming back. When they started like asking questions about what had brought it on, she started telling them about his cocaine addiction and how they were in debt because of his habit. And this was all like a shock to them because, back in his younger days, they knew that he had a problem with partying and cocaine, but they hadn't heard that he had had any more problems since he had married and had kids or anything. So they were just pretty much shocked. She ended up keeping his parents on the phone that day for more than an hour, crying and ranting about their marital issues, all while his dead body was still laying on their bed. Now, she had to think of what to do next, and she remembered that there was already a hole in the backyard that Jeff had recently dug because they were redoing the backyard and he was going to put in a fountain. He had literally dug his own grave. How convenient for Susan, right? So she grabs him by the ankles, drags him through the house, out through the patio, and then into the hole. Rigor mortis was starting to set in, so she had a bit of a hard time making him fit into the hole, but after a little hard work and determination, she had crammed him into the hole, and she started covering him up with dirt as the sun was coming up. And as the sun came up, she realized that this was probably not the best place to hide his body. And she realized that the hole probably should have been deeper, and she didn't have enough dirt really to cover him up very good. Then once she finished outside, she goes back in the house and starts to clean up. The sheets that were on the bed, she put them in a garbage bag. They were just blood soaked from the stab fest that had just taken place earlier. She threw the mattress out in the backyard. Okay. After that, she loaded the kids up and they went to run some errands, and those errands included stopping by a hardware store and buying a couple of gallons of paint. And when it was all said and done, the bedroom looked somewhat normal again, or so she thought. Now, as you can imagine, Jeff's parents didn't sleep that night, and when they still hadn't heard from their son the next afternoon, they called Susan. She told him that he had returned to get some of his stuff, and they got into an argument. She claimed that Jeff was so mad that he took a bottle of bleach into their bedroom and poured it all over the carpet and on her clothes. Now, this made no sense to his parents. And again, they wanted to talk to Jeff, but Susan told them that he had left his cell phone at the house when he left. She also gave the story to Jeff's boss and a neighbor, and the neighbor suggested that Susan report the abuse to police. So 2 days after killing her husband, she walks into the constable's office and she files a report based on what she had been telling everybody else. So she also told them that she was afraid of what Jeff might do if he found out that she had filed the report. So they granted a restraining order for her and the kids. Now, by this time, she was about to lose her mind. It was so much to keep up with, all the questions coming from everybody. People were asking bigger questions, harder questions, and she was just about to lose her mind. And when she had almost reached her breaking point, she looked out into the backyard only to see their dog digging in the spot where she had buried Jeff. And not only was the dog digging, one of his arms was reaching out of the dirt, and she could see the back of his head. And it gets worse because the dog's, he was so adamant about digging up what he had found out there in the dirt that he had literally chewed one of Jeff's hands off and left it laying on the patio. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for Susan. Now, Susan packed the kids up in the car and she drives to her mom's house. While she's there, she goes into this hard-to-follow rant session about abuse and Jeff disappearing, restraining orders, cleaning up the house, the whole 9 yards about everything that happened. Well, when her mom finally put it all together and made sense of it, she asked Susan, "Did you kill Jeff?" Susan's response was just a slight nod of her head, and then she put her head on the kitchen table. Now, her mom suggested that she find a good defense lawyer and send her kids to stay with Susan's sister Cindy, and so that's what she did. Well, after she got a defense lawyer, they told the police where they could find Jeff's body, and that's not all the police saw. Now, Susan thought she had did a really good job cleaning up the bedroom, but there was still a lot of blood that wasn't visible to the naked eye. On January 24th, 2003, Susan turned herself in, and her trial began on February 24, 2004. Now, while she was on the stand in her own defense, she claimed that she had killed Jeff in self-defense after he had attacked her with a knife and screamed, "Die, bitch." She also said that once she started stabbing him, she just couldn't stop because she was afraid he would kill her. Now, the prosecutor on the case, her name's Kelly Siegler, she had a different narrative of what had taken place and why this had all happened. And she claimed that Susan's tears were fake and that she killed Jeff in hopes of collecting a $200,000 life insurance policy. Siegler even brought the Wright's bed into the courtroom and reenacted the murder by straddling a male co-worker on the bed in an effort to prove that Susan had deliberately tried to kill Jeff. Now, in the reenactment of the murder, Siegler even fake stabbed the victim 193 times. And I'm just gonna tell you now, I'm gonna have the video of that on the Facebook and Twitter pages. But anyway, the jury only deliberated for 5.5 hours, and they came back with Susan guilty of murder, and they sentenced her to 25 years in prison. Well, in 2005, a lady by the name of Misty McMichaels came forward, and she spoke of the violence and abuse that she had endured while she was engaged for 4 years to Jeff Wright. So the 14th Court of Appeals in Texas granted Susan a new sentencing hearing, and at the new hearing, 5 years were taken off of her sentence, so that gave her 20 years. Well, over the years, as she served her time in prison, Susan had came up for parole several times, and she was denied on June 12, 2014, and on July 24, 2017. But now she was finally granted parole in July of 2020, and she was released from prison in December of 2020. But she's not out just free and clear yet. She's going to stay on parole until 2024. She has to wear an ankle monitor. She has to attend anger management classes, and she's not allowed to leave the state of Texas. Now, like any other case that I've talked about, I wasn't there, so I can't say that she was acting in self-defense or not. I fully thought that she was a cold-blooded murderer until I read about Misty McMichael coming forward with her testimony. And now I believe there's some truth to Susan's story. And like I said about O'Mama Nelson's story on Wednesday, maybe she just crossed that fine line up from self-defense and just went into overkill. Now, I'm not condoning or am I condemning what either of those women have done. It's just not for me to say. It's not for me to judge. And we really don't know what we would do unless we were put into a situation like that. I mean, we might say, oh, I would never, and you might think that, but you get put in a situation, then, sometimes you have to fight for your own life. Now, like I said, I'm not condoning what anybody did. So, but anyway, that's really all I've got for today. I know that was kind of choppy. My throat hurts, and I do apologize for the rough sounding voice. Don't forget to come back in the morning for an all-new episode of Mystery, Murder, and Magic Me and Alex are going to be wrapping up the haunted hotels of South Carolina. It's going to be part 2 on tomorrow. That because last Monday we had part 1. Y'all have a good rest of your weekend and have some fun. Stay cool too.